Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Destina. This is Spiritually Bougie Astrology, and we're going to be taking a look at the astrological transits for August 14th through the 20th. It's going to be an interesting week. It's coming off of an interesting weekend. A lot more of the interestingness was internal this weekend. That's why I said the weekend going into the new week, like this last weekend was supposed to be about self-care, doing those things that are meant to like put your body at ease, put your body at rest. But a lot of y'all couldn't do that. Y'all was super restless. But part of the reason you were super restless was because of everything that happened last week with Venus. I'm bringing up what happened with Venus last week because it plays into where we're going to go into this week. Given that one part of the transits happened last week and the next part's happening this week, doesn't necessarily mean that they don't all go together, because they do. Last week, we had three very specific sets of transits, and all three of these are kind of leading into where we're going this week. But parts of the week that we're going into has a very unexpected, uncanny, not wanting to be restrained, and almost unbridled energy. And that's specifically going to be tied to the upcoming new moon in Leo. Now, I'm not going to put a lot of heavy emphasis on the new moon. It gets its own video, but I can't ignore it either. So let's talk about those three transits and what they're leading us into this week. First one, we have the Sun square Jupiter. That's important because the Sun is in Leo. We're about to have a new moon in Leo. And Jupiter is very much involved in what the hell's going on with the Venus retrograde. Speaking of Venus, Venus square Uranus happened last week. And that happened over the course of 2 days. That was primarily, I think it was Wednesday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday. I feel like Wednesday was like Venus square Uranus. There was something that we were going back over, something coming back around, something about somebody existing or something existing in your world, in your life, in your spectrum. There was some type of news that came back, an understanding, but it was not expected. For a lot of people, they were very, very rattled by what came up to the surface. And it's taken a few days to really wrap our head around things. However, as the energy continued throughout the week and we got into the weekend, we had the Venus Cazimi. That Venus Cazimi is happening in Leo. It's actually, it's already perfected at the time that I'm recording this. I'm recording this on Sunday morning. So we kind of woke up to this energy. And the way I'm looking at that Venus Cazimi is a lot of things are meant to be presented. A lot of things are going to be shown off. A lot of things are going to happen. They're going to just suddenly come to the surface. There's going to be an appearance of things. But it didn't just happen over the weekend. The weekend was the start. The weekend was the start. Once the moon goes into Leo, which is what's going to happen Monday on the 14th, whenever we get to that part of the chart, is going to be the full casting and debuting energy of a lot of things coming to the surface, a lot of things coming to light, a lot of things getting announced. Take a look at my revenge bods. I'm engaged. I'm starting a business. My popularity is booming. And it's going to feel great. However, there's still some unexpected elements that are coming in to this week. And a lot of the unexpected elements that are coming in are tied to exactly what has occurred over the last 2 weeks. A lot of the energy that's going to round out into the week that we're going into is very much taking information, taking conversations, taking situations that have occurred, and it is slowly pushing them into perspective. But the slow doesn't happen until after the new moon, after something else plays out. Oh, when it comes to parts of this week and the way that I've written some of my notes, the Uranian energy is so strong with some of the upcoming transits this week that a lot of what I'm going to go over I'll give you more specific times, but this is one of those weeks that it's going to be more intuitive than it's going to be like the literal on paper things, because I'm partially blocked. That's on purpose, I'm sure. It's mainly the energy saying you can't know too much about your own stuff, therefore we block everything else. Ancestors are funny. They like to do stuff like that. I'm okay with unexpected. Most of everything that I feel like is coming through, I've got a good anticipation on. But hey, the universe likes to surprise me. Anyways, all right, Monday morning. Good morning, Monday. All right, I have it, for those listening to audio only, I have the screen at August 14th of 2023. I've got it at 5 a.m. Central Standard Time. For those that are new to the channel, I am in Oklahoma. I am in the center of the United States. I'm literally in the buckle of the Bible Belt, the center of Tornado Alley and all that. So whenever it comes to what I present, I always present as close as the correct time as possible. That way the more exact moments of when certain energies will play out, whether they're heavy or not. However, the human effect is, just because a transit plays out at 5 o'clock in the morning does not mean that you're going to get woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning and have something happen. A lot of times it means the human effect is that it's going to play out later in the afternoon, or it plays out the night before. So we always try to equate for some of the human effects whenever we look at some of the transits. But there is something about the Venus Cazimi that perfected Saturday overnight into Sunday, so the 12th into the 13th, that leads to a push to get through some confusion, but also face a fear. This is heavily spoken based off of that last little bit of the moon being in Cancer, and this actually plays out in the overnight. I'm keeping this in here because for some people, this is going to be a lot of dream energy. That means we're waking up to an awareness of something on Monday. Because once we get to 6 a.m., the moon will be in Leo, and there's a lot more light to Leo. But with the moon's trine to Neptune and going opposite Pluto, there's definitely an energy of trying to deal with a confusion, a past confusion, get clarity on something from the past, get clarity on some type of situation, a dream, trying to see how the effects of something is going to affect you. Now, when I'm saying effects this time, I mean like substances. So sometimes we try a new medicine, sometimes we take something, sometimes we drink something, sometimes we smoke something. And the overnight hours of Sunday going into Monday can have a triggering effect. It can have a deep level triggering effect that kind of makes us like deal with fear, drowning ourselves in our feelings, drowning ourselves in sorrows, trying to drink away the pain. And then by the time we wake up the next morning, by the time we wake up Monday morning, some of us have a splitting headache. Some of us have a lot more empowerment based off of the things that have presented themselves over the weekend. So I'm going to keep bumping this by hour. The moon enters Leo at exactly 5:37 a.m. So again, by 6 a.m., that's where the moon is. The moon's in Leo. And really, Monday's not heavy. Monday's not heavy. The moon doesn't do hardly anything after going into Leo because all of the other planets are in those later degrees. So Monday's a good day. Our energy level is high. We're feeling good. We're feeling ourselves. We're putting things together. We're getting things going. We're becoming, again, highly aware of something that has recently occurred. We're getting ready for something to come about. But some of us are really just vibing. There's not a whole lot to it. There can be some high levels of ego, but there's a lot of awareness. And I feel like as people go into the office on Monday morning, and I know not everybody works in an office, it is a phrase, get over it. Okay. I don't work in an office. I work in a corner of my bedroom. Let's just be clear. So when you get to work, when you get to the office, so too comes awareness of things that have just occurred. Things that occurred over the weekend. People start talking. Again, they're feeling good. as they're feeling good, like that and energy is a little bit infectious, and like everybody else is just kind of feeling it and going, yeah, this was a good weekend. I did get that worked out. I did get that project finished. I did get the lift on the G. Everything's good, and we're feeling confident. There is a confidence to the energy on Monday, and really, we need it. The ego boost, the confidence boost, we need this energy. Relish it, bottle it up if that's even possible. Like whatever you can do to hold on to it, you're going to want to. The first part of Monday, actually, well, all of Monday, really, is really feeling very good, being very aware of changes, being very aware of how things are working, being very aware of a lot of things, but not everything. So I'm going to keep moving the chart by hour whenever it comes to the moon in Leo. Again, the moon doesn't hardly do anything. It's not going to even hit its trine to Jupiter or anything until the overnight hours. But what does start to happen in the later parts of the evening on Monday going into Tuesday, we start the square of Uranus and the Sun. With this square starting, there's also a beginning of a trine from Uranus to Mars. Now, the new moon does not happen on Tuesday. The new moon actually doesn't happen until the overnight hours going into Wednesday. But we're building towards the new moon. So we're moving things into place. We're getting different understandings. We're feeling something come about. Some of us are slowly seeing a transition in a situation or in another person based off of how the energy is playing out. Get deeper into Tuesday, the 15th. Of course, the moon's going to be in Leo all day. When we get to the early morning hours, the moon is going to square Jupiter. So for those that are listening to audio, I've got August 15th, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. The moon is just starting its square to Jupiter. This goes closer to noon. So we're going into this energy through lunch. Now, Jupiter is in the higher position. Jupiter is applying a square to the moon, but Jupiter is also slowing down. Jupiter is just about 3 weeks away from starting its retrograde. So his position and his strength is questionable. There's questions to it. In some ways, the energy of Jupiter in the square to the moon is recapping something that has already occurred. Remember, the sun just squared Jupiter less than a week ago. Where did you get this information? How did this come about? How did you hear this? Where are we going? There's questions to the energy. But there's also questions of support. Jupiter's fixing to turn retrograde, so that tells me that some people that have been supportive, that have been present, that have been aware of things, they're starting to hit a bit of a wall. And what you're going to notice is what people are starting to talk about right here is an energy of just kind of going, I want this to work. I want things to go well. I want things to succeed. But if I keep seeing issues, I'm not going to be a part of the picture. If they're going to keep doing things to their detriment, I'm not going to sit here and help. I don't feel the need to help somebody who won't help themselves. It's a very interesting lunch meeting that happens whenever Jupiter squares the moon. Now this goes the most exact between like 11:45 a.m. and noon. So at the 12 p.m., the moon has just passed its square to Jupiter. But there's definitely some type of information that Jupiter is sharing right here. We get some type of message midday on Tuesday letting us know that something is still there for the moment. that support is about to go away. It's about to change. It's about to get withdrawn. We're losing our patience. This doesn't feel necessarily like an argument, but more of a push of awareness. Be aware that something's not going to be there much longer, that something's not going to last much longer, that something's about to turn around. Even if those words aren't necessarily the ones that are being spoken at this moment, understand that that's a big part of the energy. I'm only going to help for so long. I'm only going to be here for so long. I'm only going to do this for so long. Now, the sun is perfecting its square to Uranus all day. It actually goes exact in the evening time at 9:46 a.m. PM, blah. I said evening and AM. That's great. At 9:46 p.m. And then a few hours later in the overnight, the new moon will perfect in that square to Uranus. So the entire day is building the square between Uranus and the sun and building the square of the new moon. So hear me out on parts of this, okay? As the day continues, the moon will make a conjunction to Venus. There's something coming back around. There's somebody coming back with feedback. There's some type of information that's showing up. You're running into somebody from the past. We're running into an old situation. We're recanting, recapping, talking about things from the past, things that have recently gone on, old relationship situations, if we're talking to like an old partner. But there is a connection being made while Venus is retrograde. So a lot of it is about going over something that has recently occurred. And by recent, I mean like since June. Not necessarily just since the retrograde, but since June. With this energy right here, we're getting an idea of something that has occurred. We're seeing something shift. We're seeing something regress in a lot of ways. We're seeing somebody going back to an old way of thinking, going back to an old habit. Some of us are telling people, you're not the same because you're starting to regress back. You're not acting the way that you're supposed to be acting. This isn't you. You're acting like somebody else completely. I wouldn't normally say this with the moon and Venus, but considering Venus is retrograde and we're literally within the 6 degrees, not even 6 degrees, 6 minutes, astrological minutes, not actual minutes. We're right as the square between Uranus and the sun is building. There's something very, very unexpected to the conversation. And with Venus being retrograde and so much of Venus's energy has had so many negative inclinations, like the underbelly of the ego, where we've been seeing so much karma play out. What could be unexpected here is you're going back to somebody telling them how horrible something has been, or somebody's coming back to us saying how horrible something has been. And the moon's like, and whose fault is that? Who did that? Who created this issue? You created this issue, Venus, whoever Venus is. You did this to you. The appall. A lot of people are not necessarily willing to accept responsibility right now. They're struggling with accepting it because we're looking for somebody else to blame. That's already a negative impact of the ego anyways. Venus is retrograde here. This is going to amplify it. There's something from the past behaviors, past situations, and in some ways, Venus is getting called out. Now, literally within a few hours, the square between Uranus and the sun are going to perfect. Again, Tuesday evening, going into Wednesday, expect the unexpected, the unplanned calls, the unplanned events, the unplanned things. You can be anticipating them with Uranus's trine to Mars, but not necessarily 100%. Like, it's been one of those things that whatever is starting to build up in this energy, it has an erraticness to it. It's definitely not on the agenda. It's not in our plans. We were not fully anticipating every aspect. And whatever starts to occur Tuesday into Wednesday, not just specific to the late evening hours, so any time in the day, and that includes even going into the next day, there's some aspect that whatever is building up to, whatever it is happening, it's jarring in a lot of ways. I don't necessarily want to say chaotic quite yet, but it's like a snap where we've been getting little snaps, little pushes to remember we're only in temporary energy. Those little snaps back into reality going, hey, humble yourself. Hey, pay attention. Hey, look at what's going on. Hey, listen to this. There's something about this energy that is very, very humbling as we go through Tuesday and into Wednesday. It's erratic. There's unexpectedness. There's chaoticness. The unexpected news and the things that are coming out. Again, the moon is in Leo, so we're debuting things and we're showing something off and we're telling people things and we're super excited, but not everybody's excited for us. And that really speaks to some of the energy that's going to play out Tuesday and Wednesday. And I do feel this is going to start to play out more so Wednesday and beyond. So I'm going to keep going forward with this. So right now, the Uranus Sun square, it actually goes exact at 9:46 p.m. So we're just like 15 minutes after that. And then the new moon perfects again overnight. Roughly around 4, I'm too far now. I have it at 4:38 a.m. Central Standard Time is when the new moon is exact on the screen. I have it at 5 a.m. We're close enough. Hear me out on parts of this, guys. Because I have to put some emphasis on parts of how this is playing out because you can't just ignore the fact that there's a new moon. New moons usually instigate new energies. They bring new things coming in. There is an erraticness with Uranus's energy here. But I also want to bring up the fact that Uranus is about 12 days from turning retrograde. So having Uranus's energy in here tells me that the sudden shock waves also speak to what's going to happen leading up to Uranus's retrograde. These sudden shock waves are meant to disrupt something, not necessarily disruption always in the bad way, but disrupt something to make us aware of where an independence level is going to change. We're either about to take on all new levels of independence from another person, or we're about to succumb to something and not be as independent. And that energy speaks volumes right here. Hear me out. Here's the new moon in Leo. Yeah! Fun, fun, fun. I'm so excited. Squaring Uranus. I'm so excited. Look at my new car. Look at all the modifications I did on my vehicle. Look at my new business. Look at my new puppy. Look at my new body, my new hairdo, my new whatever. Whatever it is, there's something new. New. But Uranus is also building a trine to Mars. For some people, the new moon squaring Uranus brings something in very unexpectedly, but in some ways anticipated with the trine to Mars. Like something unexpectedly happens, Uranus is trying to Mars is like, oh yeah, we've been waiting for this shift. We've been waiting for the call from the doctor. We've been waiting to hear the news. We've been waiting to know that this has come to light. Somebody's been missing for a long time, and now we're getting the unexpected news, but confirming news. Grandpa's been sick for a long time. He's been in and out of the hospitals. Now he's back in there, but we've got a different diagnosis. We're seeing something different in the labs. We're seeing something different on the scans. So in some ways, and parts of it can be anticipated. But there hasn't been a time stamp on the anticipated. It was just kind of going, when it happens, it happens. And in some ways, this is going to be how this plays out with this new moon. We're going to see that other side going, oh yeah, it's about time. Oh, they finally got back together? That's so exciting. We're going to ignore the Venus retrograde for 2 seconds. You guys finally got back together. That's so exciting. I'm so happy for you. You've been waiting for this forever. The thing is, not everybody's been waiting forever. In some ways, the new moon and the square to Uranus, while Mars is in the trine to Uranus, is we see somebody else having a new thing come about. This new connection, this reconnection, you're seeing something play out. You're seeing somebody else's luck going well. But this Venus retrograde has not been so lucky for you. And in some ways, Uranus is trying to Mars is like awakening a green-eyed monster. There's going to be jealousy that comes through. Why does it work? Why does everybody else get to have a happy relationship? Why does everybody else get to go, start businesses? Why can't I do it? Why haven't I been able to get this figured out yet? Why am I always dealing with everybody else's drama? And in some ways, I am anticipating the little flares of alarm bells. The little flares that start to make us question how things have gone. Now, in some ways, it's going to be the jealousy thing on the questioning, like I said. In other ways, it's going to be like, this ain't mathin'. There's something that's not correct. How could you afford that? How could you have done that? Where did you get the information? Where did you get the product? Where did you get this? How did that come about? And Uranus is trying to Mars is more internal alarm bells going, oh, that shouldn't have went that way. That should never have happened. To me, one of the most interesting things about this new moon is as soon as the new moon perfects, the moon is going to go void. Something that happens unexpectedly, we're either riding the energy of the vibe all day on Wednesday, or we're questioning, we're waiting, we're trying to get something to come through, we're waiting for the next level, we are waiting for the appointment, we are waiting for the meeting, we're waiting for the next thing. There's a lot of dead air and confused air once Wednesday really kicks off. So again, the new moon perfects right here at 4:38 in the evening. The moon's going to go void all day. It will not change signs until after 6 p.m. Central Time. So it's going to be 13 hours, 13 and a half, almost mathematically. It is 13 and a half. 13 and a half hours of the moon going void right after this Uranian new moon and the trine with Mars. We're seeing something getting bragged about. We're seeing something come to light. We're seeing something get showcased, but another area is disrupted. And again, for some people, this is anticipated disruption. I've been very honest with you guys. I'm using this as an example. I'm not forecasting the situation, just to be absolutely clear, but I'm super transparent. You guys know that. My mom is sick. We juggle medicines all the time. In some ways, I keep warning you guys, I'm anticipating disruptions through this Venus retrograde. That would be an example of like anticipated disruption. This sudden erratic moment finally happened, and other people have been anticipating part of it, but not necessarily, we haven't all known when it was going to be. Again, not forecasting it, using myself as an example, not trying to manifest that. So, knock on wood, and I installed that. I know it's wood. It's just me. The other things can be a new policy at work, a new boss comes in, a new employee comes to the department, somebody gets promoted, and we knew it was coming, but not everybody's happy about it. That's the trine to Mars. There's still a disruption, and Mars's energy is always either the idea of like chaotic disruption or pivotal disruption. For some people, this is pivotal because we have that anticipation part to the energy. The other part is going to be questioning. Why did he get the promotion? I thought you were up next. Why did that go that way? I thought it was going to go the other. What do you mean that they're retiring? How did this happen? Where did all this come from? What changed over the weekend? Whatever came to light around here has the ability to disrupt another person. And it is the disruptive energy that I feel like a lot of people are stewing on, waiting on, processing. Some people with the new moon's energy, they're vibing. They're really enjoying that vibe. That new moon is going to be really good for a lot of people, but for others, it's going to lead to questions. I'd be very curious to see which side of that coin a lot of people fall on Wednesday. Because we're going to have something come to light, something that's going to be very, very known based off the fact that this is happening in Leo. But the other half of that means it's going to disrupt another area. For some people, we're going to finally get a settlement done, and now we have to go pay something out. It's going to cost us money. For other people, again, it's either a mixture of like stirring up a jealousy pot or finally having something that we've anticipated happening come about. For some people, I do anticipate the disruption is anticipated. The disruption, we know it's coming. We might not necessarily always know the reaction that's going to happen, but we know parts of it are coming. Okay. As the day progresses, like I said, right after the new moon perfects, the moon goes void. That also means that some people are going to struggle to get anything accomplished on Wednesday because we are so inundated with that other energy. We're still dealing with the new, because it is new. I mean, I don't want to say still dealing with, like, but we're dealing with whatever just came up, whatever suddenly just erupted, whatever suddenly made a change happen. That's what we're dealing with all day. And in a lot of ways, we're seeing other people, some people are seeing the others dealing with that, and, they're reeling with questions. But the other side of that is we see something that's finally happened, but at least we had a warning. I can see that going both ways. Okay. Once we get into the evening time, the moon is going to go in Virgo. And this is like coming home and finally being able to say something, but you're not even saying it like out loud. A lot of people are going to be like pulling the books out. We're pulling something out. We have this need to suddenly get some information. We have questions, but for us to understand the questions that need to be dived into, we need to have our facts straight. Because we realize that the conversation that's going to be had the next day is going to most likely be with an authority figure. It's going to be with somebody that needs to be brought up to speed. We want them to give us clarity. We want them to answer our questions. Some of us, we're going to have to be, whatever occurred in the unexpected is now making us deal with somebody else's responsibilities, deal with an authority figure, questioning how things are going to go, questioning a situation. In the overnight hours on the 17th, because right now I have it on Thursday, the 17th at 3 a.m. Central Standard Time. Right around this time, the moon is hitting its opposition to Saturn. Now, are all of us going to be doing something at 3, 4, and 5 o'clock in the morning? Not necessarily. Are some of us? Yes, because some people work overnights. Some people have to wake up early. Some people go to bed late. Depends on what's going on in your universe. So for some people, once the moon goes into Virgo, because that's going to happen, right after 6 p.m., for some people, the moon's opposition to Saturn is the night before. For others, the human effect is going to happen the next morning. Some people are spending the entire evening preparing for a meeting, preparing to do something, preparing to go to court, to go to this appointment, to make this pitch, to go into this interview. You made the decision whenever somebody else got the promotion over you, as an example, to go ahead and go forward with an interview somewhere else, to start preparing that resume, to submit out, to have interviews. There's definitely a switch that has been flipped. As we get into the 17th, parts of what we've been focusing on and thinking on are starting to slow down. Where all of last week we were mentally much quicker on a lot of things, when we get into the 17th, we're still moving. Mentally, we're still aware. We're still able to talk about a lot of things. So I don't want anyone to think like negative in this regard, but our mind keeps going back to something else. Our mind keeps lingering on something, some change in the situation, some change in the story, some change in the facts. And once the moon goes into Virgo, there is a very big inquisitiveness that starts to take hold. We want information, but this is information that is tangible. We want to look at the contracts. We want to look at the agreements. We want to deep dive into something. We're going back through the conversations. We're going through the screenshots. We're going back through and looking at all the pictures and looking at everything that has transpired. This energy for a lot of people is all what the moon in Virgo is going to feel like, is the need to dive into something, dive into the information, to get to the nitty gritty, to get to the bottom of something. We're overthinking as the week continues. The first element to what we're diving into, overthinking about, reeling over, it comes through on the 17th after the moon's opposition to Saturn. So even if part of the moon opposite Saturn plays out for you Wednesday evening, that doesn't mean you're not going to still have to deal with it, or you're not still going to be thinking about it going into Thursday. Now, after the moon's opposition to Saturn, the moon isn't doing a whole lot. What we are still feeling the effects of is Uranus is square to the sun, and Uranus is trine to Mars. If you were not aware during the new moon's energy of what has recently transpired, that is what has recently shaken up, you will become more aware as we get into Thursday. There will be deeper conversations. Somebody that wasn't working the day before is now working, and they're getting caught up. So what happened yesterday? Oh my God, girl, you missed it. You missed it. Oh, all right, we're going to keep going. If you got passed over for a promotion, there's a sullenness to Thursday. If you see two people have just gotten together and you can't necessarily be happy for them for whatever reason, that's a part of the energy too. There's something that has a weightedness once the moon goes into Virgo. We are critical, but we're critical of everything. And the longer we dwell on something, the more critical we become, the more dots we're connecting, the more inquisitive we're becoming, the more we're starting to see and understand. For some people, while the moon is in Virgo, and again, the moon's always in a sign for 2.5 days, we start to recognize a pattern. We start to see a pattern. We start to see how something has gone on. In some ways, we feel the need to confirm what we're seeing. And I feel like that's a big part of where we're at on Friday, on the 18th. So right now, based off where we're at on the screen, for people listening to the audio version, I have it on August 18th. So this is Friday morning, 1 a.m. Like, it's bright. It's not even bright. I don't even know why I said bright. It's right after the new moon. Dusty. Bad dusty. It's dark. Dark 30. But there's something here whenever Jupiter trines the moon. We learn something from somebody else. We see something from somebody else. We get another understanding. We go back over certain conversations. And the thing about last week, whenever Venus was in that square to Uranus, so too was the trine between Mercury and Jupiter. That happened last week at the same time. So there was some aspect of Venus is square to Uranus, of that unexpected news conversation, that rattling conversation. In another aspect, there was also support. This is happening at nearly the same degree whenever the moon comes into Virgo and hits that trine to Jupiter. This almost feels like a heads up for some people. Like, hey, they're acting funny. They're acting weird. I mean weird. I mean weird. Weird? Weird. Oh, I don't know about weird. We're acting funny. People are acting different. They're not saying as much right now because they're processing. They're thinking about it. They're overthinking about it. Why do I keep saying the overthinking and the dwelling and the reeling type thing? Mercury usually doesn't spend more than a day at a single degree. Mercury's been at 20 degrees for over 24 hours. Over the weekend, Mercury will hit the 21 degree mark and start stationing to turn retrograde. Mercury's retrograde starts next week. In this moment, we're still in the first stages of Mercury's slowdown. So we're starting to feel the effects of that mental slowdown. Not saying that people will themselves be slow, but it's like we're so distracted, we're so stuck on this one topic, this one information, this one discussion, this one situation, that it's hard to focus on anything else. Our ability to comprehend everything else in our daily starts to dwindle because this one topic starts to overtake. And whatever this topic is, whatever the situation is, there is tangible aspects to it because we're talking about Mercury's retrograde. That's, again, it's not going to start till next week, but the moon is in Mercury sign. Mercury is in Mercury sign, and Mars is in Mercury sign. But this is the physical effects of Mercury. There is tangibleness. So there's things about logistics. We're starting to really try to get the nitty gritty of where we're going to go, how we're going to do something. We're getting to the nitty gritty of how we're bringing our portfolio and our resume up to speed. For others, we're overthinking recent discussions and recent situations, and we're trying to understand how something occurred. We see the unexpectedness. We've seen that already now. By the time we get to the end of the week, a lot of us are processing, a lot of us are researching, a lot of us are trying to get a better understanding, a critical awareness of what has just happened. Now, there's something about the trine from Jupiter to the moon, like I said before, that gives support and understanding. And some part of me feels like for some of us, this is going to play back to last week during the Venus square Uranus Mercury trine Jupiter part of the transit. When was that? I got the same notebook. Hold on. I'm going to make sure I give you guys the right days. Thursday. Wednesday, Thursday. Okay, I'm making sure I was right on that. Wednesday, Thursday. That's whenever that was going on. So think again what happened last week in that Wednesday, Thursday time frame. So that would have been the 9th and the 10th. What news came forward around that time? What understanding did you get? This is the next layer to that. If you had a conversation with somebody in specific, the next layer would be like, hey, just so you know, they're acting funny. They're acting weird. They're doing something I don't trust. I want you to be aware. Okay, thanks for the heads up. Some of us are going to get a heads up. For some of us, the heads up is going to be really late on Thursday evening. For some of us, it's going to be early Friday morning. And that is even more emphasized by the fact that by the time we get to Friday morning, the moon comes into a conjunction with Mercury. Now that is going to happen between 11:30 and 1:30 in the afternoon. For those that are listening to the audio version, I have the screen at August 18th at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. The moon has just hit 20 degrees. Mercury's at 20 degrees, 40 minutes. So it's going to be over this 2-hour time span, lunch hour time span, the extra layer of information. Hey, just so you know, I learned something last night. I heard something yesterday. This happened. And it's a bit of a heads up for a lot of people. It is the next layer of some information that is going to spark a turnaround, spark a change, and spark a transition. That transition does not happen this weekend. It doesn't. It happens next week. But there's definitely an exchange going on as the moon hits this conjunction to Mercury, and Mercury is stewing. Mercury's stewing because Mercury's spinning and slowing down and getting ready to turn retrograde. In the later parts of the day, the moon's still in Virgo, is going to hit this trine from Uranus before it makes a conjunction to Mars. And this right now I have this at 6 p.m. So the trine between the moon and Uranus happens between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. The moon's conjunction to Mars happens between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. But considering we just had that Uranus-Mars trine during the new moon, this feels like it's the next layer or additional information or the next shift tied to what happened in the new moon, tied to that erraticness. It's awakening parts of that energy. But it's also going to give additional layers. There is some disruption once the moon hits that conjunction to Mars. There can be arguments, there can be some frustration, there can be some awareness that is made. I wouldn't normally do that always with the moon conjunct Mars. I mean, I've seen frustrations with moons conjunct Mars. Usually it has to do with like getting some type of dynamic or having some type of motivation. But this conjunction is happening right as Mars is entering its opposition to Neptune. In the overnight hours, the moon will actually do an opposition to Neptune. But that Mars-Neptune opposition happens next week, and that happens right before Mercury turns retrograde. So this is very telling. There's something that we are made aware of. There's something that comes through, something that we're not happy about, something that we don't necessarily understand. And as we get into the weekend, we start to feel ourselves ready to address something, ready to face something, aware that we have to face something, aware that something is coming, that something has shifted and something has changed. After the moon makes its conjunction to Mars, it kind of goes quiet until we get into those overnight hours. So some of us are going to have a hard time sleeping. And again, we're in that energy of like overthinking. We're reeling over things. We're dealing with things. There's so much of a continuance from things that have just occurred this week. There's something about the energy that is letting us know that we're getting closer to having to deal with something. Now, with the moon's opposition to Neptune, and given the way parts of this energy has played out, parts of this can be like we got the next round of info, we got the next layer, and now we're waiting to see how something is going to impact us. The thing about Mars is Mars rules the head. The thing about Mercury is the logical part of our mind, and the moon is the other part of our mind, but it's more the intuitive, empathic level. There is something about the head, thoughts, blood. I'm just picking up blood. The lymphatic system, actual physical like fluids within the body. So not just blood, but not just the lymphatic system. Things here that are getting impacted. For some of us, it's going to be as easy as like just feeling like that bloat in the body, feeling like a little swollen, a little puffy. We've had too much soda. We need some water. The moon's opposition to Neptune can also be like, I know you lied to me. I know you've been lying to me. I know you did this. I know this happened. It's an awareness of a lie. Are we necessarily dealing with something at 1 o'clock in the morning? No. But there is something about this that speaks to substances. It speaks to confusion. It speaks to illogical emotions. And even though the moon is in Virgo, it would normally not be illogical. Mercury is about to turn retrograde. People are not thinking clearly. Again, people are stewing. Mentally, we're slowing down. We're feeling the buildup of something. And again, this buildup that we're feeling, it doesn't happen over the weekend. The moon's opposition to Neptune with Mars in this mix, I don't like the idea of going out and partying, guys. I don't. There's a martial element with Mars right here. Okay. Checkpoints are going to be big. And considering it's like right after back to school, like especially I live near a university. Like literally, I live half a mile from a university. So, and I know in my area, the patrols are going to pick up. Because what happens whenever colleges start back up? So too do the fraternity shenanigans. Shenanigans. There's some shenanigans to Friday night. That's a great way to put it. I like that. It's a lot lighter. Friday night going into Saturday. There's shenanigans. The moon is going to hit this opposition to Neptune, and then it's going to enter a trine to Pluto. Now, this all happens overnight, Friday night going into Saturday. Whatever shenanigans we get into with the moon's opposition to Neptune, we also have to deal with a fear, an old situation coming back up, something unexpected. We thought we were just going to go out for drinks. We thought we were just going to go out to party. And then somebody else shows up. Something else pops in. Something else comes into the picture. Again, there is that element of some unexpectedness, some frustration, somebody or something that's been getting on your nerves. There can be an altercation. I don't necessarily feel like a whole lot of people will deal with altercations, but there's an element of that whenever it comes to Friday evening. I don't know about you guys. I don't necessarily always count it to the next day until I actually go to sleep. So I go to sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning. As far as I'm concerned, I still went to sleep. And that was yesterday. For some people, this ain't quite tomorrow yet, the overnight hours. However, after the moon goes through its trine with Pluto, the moon will go void. So after we get to 4 o'clock in the morning, it starts to slow down. If you guys work in the medical field, I don't like Friday night, guys. I really don't like Friday night. And I don't like the new moons for you guys either. There's tension and there's stress. But there's something that comes through that really makes us aware of something we're about to do. And in a lot of ways, we're trying to figure out what we're going to say. And that is a big part of the weekend. Now, Saturday morning, and right now I have this at August 19th at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is newly in Libra. Once the moon goes into Libra, it's kind of like the Leo thing that happened on Monday. There is not a lot transit-wise that's going on. We actually had more transit-wise going on Monday than we do here. However, I'm going to remind everybody how the Venus retrograde started now that we're here. Venus retrograde started on July 22nd. Think back to that weekend because there was a lot of energy that weekend. A whole hell of a lot of energy that weekend. And right after Venus turned retrograde, the moon was going through Virgo and went into Libra. I remember that weekend. I remember how the effects of the moon going into Libra felt for a lot of people. There was a lot of chatter and there was a lot of busyness. There was a lot of discussions. What were we talking about? What were we dealing with? What were we wanting to get through? We were trying to deal with whatever turned around with that Venus retrograde. In this conversation, this is not about a month ago, but think of the things that have happened over the last month, how your connection with somebody has changed, how a situation has changed, where things have gone wrong, where things have gone right, what has been taking shape all during this Venus retrograde. All weekend, the moon is going to be in Libra. And really, it's not going to do a whole lot in Libra, especially not on Saturday. It doesn't actually do anything until Sunday. So for the weekend, I'm kind of putting everything together based off of the fact that I know what's going to happen next week. Parts of the moon in Libra is mentally preparing ourselves for how we're going to face something, how we're going to address something, how we're dealing with something. We're talking to people. There is a lot of noise, but there's also a lot of overthinking. We're pissed. A lot of people are pissed off about something. We're trying to get our bearings about us because we want to address something, but we don't have all the details. The moon hits 21 degrees on Saturday. This is where the moon is going to be until August 27th. The moon will turn, Mercury will turn retrograde at 21 degrees. From this weekend on, until the retrograde starts on the 23rd, we're reeling over something. We're waiting for something to turn around. We're trying to get an idea of how it's going to turn around. We're waiting for the medicine to kick in. We're waiting for the results. We're waiting for a scan. We're waiting for a lab. We're waiting on a decision. Something that we've just presented earlier in the week. We're waiting to see what happens. And part of the weekend is just going to be trying to distract ourselves. finding something, some way to put our energy somewhere. The more productive ways we use our energy, the less chaotic things will be. But there's some element to the moon in Libra that reminds me of how Venus retrograde started. That weekend also include an opposition of the Sun and Pluto. Many of us were meant to face something at the start of the Venus retrograde with the Sun opposite Pluto. What did you face that week between the 17th, July 17th, and July 22nd? The next layer and the next round are starting to build. They're starting to come together. They're starting to fall into place. I'm going to keep going on the screen just to kind of show you guys. Here's the 19th, we're at 3 p.m. Like the moon in Libra, it's not doing anything. It's really not. We do have a bit of an awareness to, a lie or a deception. We're aware of a substance or a substance issue that somebody else is having. We do have an awareness that comes through, but we're not necessarily sure exactly what we're dealing with. It's going to take all weekend to figure it out. So I'm still fast forwarding the wheel. We're now on Sunday. We're on the 20th. The moon still hasn't really aspected anything until we get to right around here. Midday, the moon in Libra is going to sextile Venus. The moon in Venus's sign is going to sextile a retrograde Venus. Have you figured out how you're going to deal with this? Have you figured out the conversation that you're going to have? Do you know what's going to happen next? Do you know what to do next? Have you decided what you're going to say when you show them the receipts? Tell them that you knew they lied? Do you know how you're going to address this? There's some aspect here of like mental prep with the moon's sextile to Venus. And the reason I say that is because right as we start the new week, which we're not going to talk about a whole lot in this episode, Venus is about to re-enter her square to Jupiter. And what happens at the same time as this square happens, so just to kind of give you guys a preview of next week, we also get Mars's opposition to Neptune. I think this is hilarious. I do. Jupiter and Neptune both rule Pisces. What does Pisces rule in your chart? Because this is where we're going to get the reality check. This is where we get it from, a better statement. The reality check will come from this area. And what's even more interesting to me is the fact that this is also where the next full moon is going to be, guys. August 30th, the next full moon is in Pisces. The rulers of Pisces really start to play heavy next week. And then we'll go into a full moon. What in our beliefs have been tested? What in our emotions has been tested over the last few weeks? The last thing that the moon will do on Sunday, and then I'm going to turn the screen off, is the moon's going to hit an opposition to Chiron. I like Chiron transits because I look at it from a healer perspective. I use Chiron's energy as a healer. There's an awareness or a discussion of how to dress a wound, how something healed in the past, how something went in the past. There is an idea based off past experience that enters the discussion. Now again, this is the moon in Venus's sign, and Venus is starting to re-enter her square with Jupiter. This whole week is sudden developments, a rash of sudden changes. And those sudden changes are going to lead to things that are going to get addressed next week. There's so much energy after the new moon that one leaves us mentally reeling, like I said, but also makes us very, very aware. We're starting to truly understand the hidden, underbellied motives of another person. We're seeing their motivations, the way they've processed things, the way they've handled things, whether good, bad, or ugly, has come to the surface. For some people, we've seen the underbelly of their shadow work that hasn't been done. And we are recognizing a pattern of where somebody needs to heal. But the thing is, you can't heal something for someone else. You can't heal unless you're ready. Some people don't have an easy time addressing wounds. There are wounds that need to get addressed. Something that I covered in the Mercury retrograde video that hasn't been uploaded yet, just to be clear, but I'm forewarning you it's coming. I've already recorded it. I just haven't uploaded it yet. But something that you're going to notice once Mercury turns retrograde, which happens next week with all that other shit I just mentioned, is there is a very big mental snap that's going to come through. And some of us are going to be the person pushing somebody else to face their trauma, to face their wound, to face whatever they need to face to heal. The thing about hurt egos is we need to understand where the egotisticalness comes through. Why do they feel entitled to that? Why do they feel everything should go their way? As the weeks progress, there is going to be an awareness, but not everybody's going to be okay with that awareness. Some people aren't going to go down without a fight. And I feel like after Mercury turns retrograde, we're going to see those that don't like the mirror being put up in front of their face. And as they react, how they're going to react. And you guys will see what I'm talking about, I promise you. So too will we react. But our reaction to those that have been so grabbed by Venus's energy is going to be our own mental flip. If this is how you're always going to be, if you've always been jealous, if you've always had this issue, if you've always hated me, why are we friends? Why are we talking? Why were you ever in my life? Why did I ever share anything with you? If you've seen patterns of manipulation, nobody's going to like whenever you call them on their shit. And there is a big element next week that is calling somebody on their shit. But not everybody's going to be ready to face it. Whatever suddenly happens this week, for a lot of people, it's going to break their filter. It's going to break a lens. It's going to shatter the way that we saw a situation, the way that we saw something playing out, the way we saw a certain individual. And that is, of course, going to lead to the tension and the arguments that are going to come next week. If you have done everything from the highest reproach and the highest level of integrity, then you know exactly where people are about to come back around. You know exactly who's not going to like the way the story has gone, the way things have played out. There's going to be those that are frustrated. Now, for some of us, the disruption is, again, anticipated. And the things that start to play out after Mercury goes retrograde is going to be heavy and instigate a lot of transitions. Again, we're in a time this year So this is why I say it this way. We are in a time of transitions, transitioning out old authority figures and old ways of thinking and old traditions, old belief systems, so a new one can come through. But there are people that are tied to those old systems. And part of the transition is either transitioning them, training, teaching them, getting them all learned it up in how to do the new things and how to be a part of the new ways of handling things, the new technology, the new environments, the woke mentality. Not every adult, not every parent is woke. Some people need some lessons. That's a good part of the Mercury retrograde. But for others, we're going to see a flip in characters. And that last part of Venus's retrograde after next week is going to show the underbelly that claws and scrapes. There's going to be people that come through that they don't like the mirror. They don't like what you have to say. They don't like you calling them on their shit. And then afterwards, the way that they think, the way that people can do things, especially if their ego has just been hurt. If you're not going to give me what I want, I'll take it. If you're not going to do what I want you to do, I'll ruin things for you. I'll hurt you. I'll do something to make us even. Do we really need to be even? Not necessarily. But there's going to be some people with hurt egos that they do not want to go down without a fight. They're not ready to let go of what they feel entitled to. And entitled is a lot of the energy with this Venus retrograde, this sense of entitlement. When Venus was in that square to Uranus, I didn't feel entitlement. I felt the shocks to the system. I seen people going through the shocks to the system. Jupiter's energy is different. This is the guru. This is the teacher. This is the yogi. Jupiter is a lot more peaceful in his lessons. However, Jupiter's also hosting Saturn. And Saturn's give a damn's kind of busted. Saturn's retrograde. Parts of what's going to happen next is going to be telling people you have to accept change. You have to accept the transition. You have to face your wounds. You have to face your demons. You have to deal with something. Not everybody's ready for that. Not everybody's ready to be held accountable. They wanted what they wanted. The universe was supposed to give them what they want. I've played so nicely. I've done everything you wanted. Did you really, though? Or did you lead from your ego? The level of hurt egos that start to come through this week are minuscule compared to next week, but they're still going to be there. There's a big part of the second half of this week that we're coming through. So again, the 14th through the 20th. There's a part of this week that is meant to be sudden and erratic and crazy, unplanned disruptions. Sometimes anticipated, like I said before, but in other ways, not so much. For others, we're going to see how happy they are and how boastful and excited and look at my new life, look at my new house, look at how this is going. I'm so great, I'm so happy. And it's going to spark jealousy. It's going to spark that little green-eyed monster. Why do you get everything? Why can't I ever get anything in life? That victim mentality has been really high lately too. Not everybody's ready to deal with the wounds. In fact, a lot of people are about to show just how deep the wound is with their behavior. The weekend is building up to that. Whatever plays out is more likely to happen next week, but the weekend is definitely building up to the turnaround, to the call out, to the change of perception. And I don't feel like this change is going to be great for everybody. I feel like it has a lot of frustrations and a lot of headache. This Venus retrograde is going to get heavier once Mercury turns retrograde in a lot of ways. And the more you do to prepare yourself for that, the easier things are going to be. I've said this multiple times throughout the Venus retrograde. Do those things that ground yourself. Do those things that physically help you push tension out of your body to keep yourself in alignment. If you haven't been doing those, start it this week. Especially when you have those moments where you're overthinking and reeling over one person or one situation or one topic. If it's becoming an unhealthy part of the day, you need to do something to change your physical energy. And working through the tension is the best way to do that. Do the things that put yourself and keep you in alignment. That is what's going to make part of this week easier. But it's also going to be a part of what helps prepare us mentally for next week. Next week's a lot more intense, guys. Ooh, okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for all of the love and all of the support. I will keep everybody posted in case there are disruptions. You have this video coming out. I've already recorded the Mercury retrograde video. My goal is the next video to do is for the new moon in Leo. In that video, I will also break it down based off of ascendant, so that way people can get a better idea of what that new moon is going to disrupt based off of your rising sign. So I will see everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.